Neil Coyle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Cheltenham. And I joined the debate with the same spirit of consensus with which he began his contribution. I wish to speak exclusively to the extension of terror reinsurance clause 19 in Chapter 4. Whilst it may appear in the miscellaneous provisions, this crucial clause offers a significant opportunity to protect businesses and people from future attacks, as well as to help those who have already experienced attacks. And whilst he's no longer in the chamber, I'd like to thank the Home Secretary for his kind words in opening this session about my own work over the last 12 months, because I speak as a representative of a constituency and community who were sadly attacked last year in the London Bridge and Borough Market attack on the 3rd of June. I don't wish to dwell on the barbaric or savage motives of those who attacked, but this new clause links directly to the Prime Minister and Minister's statements at the time about not letting terrorists win, and how we combat their motives and their potential to change our ways of living and working. I would like to extend my thanks to Bishop Christopher, the Bishop of Southwark, who sits in the other place here, and Dean Andrew Nunn from Southwark Cathedral, and their whole team at Southwark Cathedral, because of their efforts over the last year, but in particular for hosting such a moving commemorative service last week, focusing on the people directly affected, including the loved ones of the 8 people murdered last June and those injured, but also providing a sense of purpose for now and for the future, planting a new tree of life. Its very growth fuelled by compost from the flowers laid by well-wishers on London Bridge last year. That symbol of ongoing life and vibrance in the area is genuinely well conceived and was delivered so very sensitively last week. I'd also like to extend thanks to the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the Home Secretary, the Shadow Home Secretary, and the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for attending the service last week, and to Southwark Council Leader Peter John and Eleanor Kelly, the Chief Executive, for providing space on the bridge for a minute's silence and more flower laying just last week. But in the service, the sentiments of the local community came through so very strongly. The sense that we must continue living our lives, but that something had also dramatically changed. There was a community project run after the attacks for people to provide their own testimony and personal experience. And words of one local resident were echoed by the Home Secretary last week. This person said that the terror attack changed this neighbourhood forever, but not in the way the terrorists had planned. This community is going to carry on being diverse, inclusive and welcoming. And that sentiment was echoed directly when the cathedral was reopened last year after attack by the Archbishop of Canterbury, who stated that the terrorists had unwittingly created a renewed sense of community. And that is very much something that I've felt and seen in the last 12 months. My community did stand tall last year. The immediate response was absolutely incredible. The police, the NHS, who deserve our thanks and praise for the incredible efforts, but also the individual, ordinary and extraordinary people who stepped in to prevent others being attacked, to confront the terrorists directly, at risk to their own safety. Taxi drivers who provided free transport out of the area to those worried, to local people who opened their doors to complete strangers to charge a phone or for refuge, and to the hotels, businesses, others who offered shelter overnight. And in the ensuing days, the public response was incredible. Donations of almost £50,000, direct support from other businesses to a similar level, practical support from Barclays on Borough High Street, who provided office space to those who could no longer access their own premises, and even British Transport Police opening up their counselling service to those traumatised by what they'd seen. And of course, after in the weeks after the reopening, the solidarity from the local community was again incredible. From businesses, News UK and Emerging Market providing vouchers to staff worth tens of thousands to use at Borough Market. Southwark Council providing rates relief of over £100,000, and Sadiq Khan freeing up £300,000 from City Hall, to help the local community. Funding administered by United St Saviour's, a brilliant local charity with a long history of helping the local community. And that response was much needed, because the attackers could not have known what a huge outpouring of solidarity they would trigger. But that help was much needed, because the attack may have just been 8 minutes, thanks to the extraordinary efforts and heroism of the police. But the Coyle investigation closed the area for 10 days, affecting 150 local businesses. Now, many people will be familiar with Borough Market, but this isn't a place that just provides bits and bobs or personal groceries. It's a market that's been there for 1,000 years, and tons of produce is at the market daily. The market supplies restaurants, hotels across the capital and far beyond, and tons of produce was lost during the closure after the attack. Contracts to supply other restaurants were lost. Bookings at restaurants were lost. The London Bridge experience was directly affected and lost bookings. The total bill for those 150 businesses is estimated to be over £2 million. Couple of examples. Cannon & Cannon are a wholesaler of British charcuterie. Their losses were about £11,000 and they were able to access compensation. Turnips is a fruit and veg distributor. They lost nearly £100,000 as a direct result of the attack and closure. Their insurer is Aviva. Now, Aviva have not paid out despite repeated requests to reconsider, and Aviva stand out in this in what happened last year, sadly, because they were the only insurer to not respond with flexibility. They were the only insurer to so badly let down the local community. And I hope Aviva shareholders are aware of its terrible response and its insult to British values in these exceptional circumstances after the attack. And I should add that many insurers, AXA, RSA, Zurich and others who did work for Flexible Help, I'm grateful for their advice and support. And I thank very much the British Insurance Brokers Association and Association of British Insurers. I'm so grateful for their help over the last 12 months. I did not know about this particular area before, and they all accept that this clause is needed, and they've worked together to get the government to this point. Many of those organisations had raised concerns, however, before. I believe it's about 2.5 years ago that the Treasury was warned, and sadly that warning was not heeded. The insurance challenge was recognised. It's clear from the briefings for this debate, it's clear in the Home Office bill briefing. The government-backed pool reinsurance system was set up in the 90s and only covers physical damage, not business interruption from investigations into terror attacks. I welcome the new clause to close that loophole in future, but the government is currently only planning for future incidents, despite the fact that the explanatory notes for this bill make specific reference to Borough Market and the difference it could have made to those affected in my constituency last year. I find the Home Office stating that this clause will not be used to help those so badly affected last June. I find that a very, very bitter pill to swallow and very difficult to understand. I hope the government will reconsider this matter and allow a retrospective start date for all of 2017. And I do that for 4 key reasons. Firstly, my constituency needs it. London Bridge and Borough Market need it. If it hadn't been for public donations, firms were at risk, jobs were at risk, Treasury revenue was at risk, and one micro business had even had their mortgage covered on their home as a result of public donations. That situation did not need to happen. And sadly, despite all of the public response I have mentioned, the government was not there last year. I find it absolutely shocking. We had the Prime Minister visit and show the Prime Minister of Australia around. We had a business minister come and meet with those employers directly affected. We had the Economic Secretary to Treasury's predecessor meeting here for some of those businesses affected, but not a penny of central government support came to help my local community, and this clause is a chance to rectify that absence from 2017. And thirdly, the fact that the government was warned of the need to close the loophole and failed to do so, I think, is justification enough for retrofitting this clause now, because my local firms and employers were unacceptably exposed to that loophole. And finally, the 4th reason is pool reinsurance, the government scheme, has the funds. There is no cost to the Treasury. There's no cost to insurers or taxpayers for retrofitting for last year. It is simply willful negligence, in my opinion, to deny help to an area so badly hit when the finances are there to allow support. So I close with that plea to the government to extend coverage to last year. I welcome this clause, but I want it retrofitted. And I hope that ministers will be sympathetic to that aim as the bill goes through committee stages, in which I hope to participate.